Hello, I'm Rex Childhouse, and to date this video, because videos on the internet seem to lose their date reference, today is Friday, April 8th, 2022, and I'm outside because I need a bigger field of view, and this video actually started many years ago in a land far away. I went to kindergarten or first grade or something, and my teacher had me make a kite. Now I knew what kites were. I'd flown kites already at that point, and we made a kite, and I kind of made one that looks like it. Piece of construction paper, had a string, had a tail. I didn't draw stuff on this, but you got to draw sorts of stuff on it, and took it home. Had a lot of fun making it. Took it home, tried to fly it, and it didn't fly. And guys, one of the cruelest things you can do to a child is to disillusion them, to disappoint them. And this disappointed me. Kites flew. Even Charlie Brown's kites fly. Trees eat them, but Charlie Brown's kites fly, at least into the tree. And this kite fails aerodynamics. There's no airfoil to it. If you tow it, it will fling around and twirl and whatever else, but fly it won't. So I was disappointed, I was disillusioned, I was frustrated, I was annoyed, whatever. I was like that. So many years later, I have children, and they made similar kites in their grammar schools, and they brought them home, and the very first thing I told them was, you know, that's great, let's put it up on the wall. And I bought them a kite, a real kite, or we made a kite, and we went out and we flew kites. Well, many years after that, I'm coming home to Ramona, California, where I am now, and one of my neighbors comes home from school trying to get their kite, same principle, trying to fly, and it wouldn't fly. And we had a discussion as to why things fly, because I'm a naval aviator. I've only flown 12,000 plus hours between civilian and military time, and we do some work on the kite, and we kind of get it to do something, but it wasn't really good. So let's talk about the aerodynamics involved in kites. And you can make one, or you can buy one. Making them's pretty easy. I didn't make this one. It's a kit off of the internet. But we're going to discuss how a kite is built and why a kite flies. Okay, this is a kite that I bought on the internet. I didn't build it. They're easy to build. I could have built it. I probably have balsa wood up there and string and paper. Newspaper works great for this. So this is a kite, and I'm going to move it around a little bit. It has a shape to it, and that shape is critical. That shape forms an airfoil, and an airfoil is what makes a kite fly. So let's go back to some basics. Let's address some basics, and I'm going to use my tape measure. From the tip of the kite to the cross piece is about 7.5 inches. From the cross piece to the bottom of the kite is about 17.5 inches. So for your design, the top half of the kite should be about 30% of its total length, 25 to 30%, 1/4, a little less than 1/3, because that's going to give you the shape you need. It's diamond for a reason. It's not rectangular. It's diamond for a reason. The width is just a little bit less than its height, and it needs to be bowed. It needs to have this bow feature to it, because what's going to happen is air pressure is going to impact it as we run into it. Let's address a couple of other things before we get on whack. It needs to have not a string at the top. It needs to have a string forming a yoke. And I'm fighting the wind already. This thing wants to fly. It needs to have a string forming a yoke. So the string attaches back here a couple of inches from the tail and a couple of inches from the nose. And then I am looped into it at about 1/3 the string loop. And that allows us to put a pressure on this kite, a restraining pressure, similar to this, as we're going to fly this kite. And what that does is that keeps the angle of attack, how the wind is hitting the kite and how the kite is staying, that keeps the kite flying. If the kite goes like this, it's not going to fly real well. If it goes like this, it's not going to fly real well. It has to maintain something around this angle here, this angle of attack, to work right. So let's talk about an element that comes into play here, and that is how the air is going to work on this kite. Now, there's a guy called Giovanni Battista Venturi back in the 1800s, the 19th century, and I'm having fun with my kite because my kite wants to fly. He explained how air flows through constricted and restricted areas. What's going to happen is, and let's imagine that the air is 10 molecules of soldiers across here. I'm going to rotate that in a minute, probably. 10 molecules of soldiers, all standing 1 foot apart. Shoulder to shoulder distance is 1 foot. Well, atmosphere is really orderly, physics is really orderly. They always want to stay in that relationship, and the first one always wants to stay in spot 1, second one always wants to stay in spot 2, third one always wants to stay in spot 3. If they get disrupted, they will return to those original positions. 3 will always be in 3. Just consider that to be an absolute. So what's going to happen is the wind is going to hit our kite. Those 10 molecules, those 10 soldiers of wind, of air, are going to hit our kite. Now, because number 10's out here and number 1's out here, 1's out here, 10's out here, because 2 through 9 are in the middle, they have to do something weird. They have to get around the kite, they can't get through it. So when they hit the kite, they're going to put a pressure on it. That pressure is going to help push our kite up. Really cool. But they have to go somewhere because number 10 and number 1 are going. They have to catch up to them. So they are going to accelerate their rate of movement, and they're going to come around the kite. And as they come around the kite, because they can't come in here because their number 1 and number 10 guys are already over here, they're going to come in, and they're going to come in on an angle. And what that's going to do is that's going to create a low pressure area here and suck the kite up. So not only is the kite being pushed by the pressure of the wind, by those 8 soldiers of molecules of air, it's also being sucked up because the molecules of air that are already in here are staying here. They got abandoned by their guys, and nature has to reset itself, so to speak. So 2 through 8 are going to come around the kite. They're not going to come this way. They're going to come this way, and this is going to be a low pressure area as defined by Mr. Venturi back in the 1800s, 19th century. And what's going to happen is that's going to suck the kite up into the air. So we have 2 forces working on this. We have the wind pressure, those 10 molecules of air, 8 of them hitting our kite, pushing our kite, and we have the Venturi effect on the back side of the kite, sucking the kite up. That's going to give us lift. We have to control the angle of that, because if we get like this, then the wind just goes this way. We don't have much lift because there's not much deflection. It's really easy. And we can't do this because there's too much, and the kite's going to do, and what aviators will stall and just fall out of the sky. I was flying yesterday with my next door neighbors, who I love to fly with. We were flying kites, and it was pretty gusty, and we were having problems trying to keep the air up. I'm going to show you some videos later on that I was flying this kite in some pretty decent winds. Right now we have some gusty winds, and you can see the difference. Flying a kite on a gusty one day is not a good thing. Smooth, consistent airflow, a nice breezy wind. Go back to Mary Poppins. It was a great song. So what happens is we're pulling on the kite, we're restricting its flow, its movement by the string, and the purpose of the tail, besides helping you find your kite, the purpose of the tail is to provide a little bit more drag, sucking the kite back so that we can keep its aspect ratio, because you're going to see this kite jumping all over the place, left and right, up and down. It's going to jump left and right because wind is not smooth. I may have 10 soldiers over here, I may only have 8 soldiers over here. If that happens, this is going to bend back. Well, when this bends back, and I'm going to rotate it this way, when I get 10 soldiers over here of air, 10 molecules of air, and 8 molecules of air because of the air pressure of the wind, this is going to come back. When that happens, a marvelous little thing is going to happen. This span is now shorter effectively than this span, and the kite's going to want to correct itself. And you'll see the kite wobble back and forth, and it's wobbling back and forth because we have different numbers of air molecules, those air soldiers, hitting this side than this side, and the kite's always going to correct itself. As it rotates this way because of the increased pressure, this gets more surface area because this effectively is the distance versus this, and the kite will correct itself. So the kite will wobble. Same thing's kind of going to happen with nose to tail, and not as much because the way we have this string. So that's kite flying, guys. Flat kites don't fly. I think that's cruel and unusual punishment to a child, to give them a flat kite, have them make a flat kite. And this kite wants to fly. This kite really wants to fly. And right there it's stalled. It's really just hanging. But the wind's died. But you now know the aerodynamics of a kite. It needs to have a diamond shape, and we're talking specifically to a diamond kite. There's other types of kites, box kites. I love box kites. This is about 20 to 30% of the total length. This is just less than the length of the kite. It has to be bowed. It has to have what you might want to call a harness or a yoke, and it has to be tethered from the forward portion. That's called flight of opportunity. It has to be tethered from the forward portion to give us the correct angle of attack, a nice angle of attack. It needs a tail to help stabilize the kite. That keeps it from swishing back and forth a lot. Doesn't stop it from swishing, just reduces its swishing back and forth. Also makes it pretty colorful and easier to see. So I painted this one so that we could actually see it in the sky, because it was white and not really good. So let's go over to actually flying a kite, because today wouldn't be a real good day about flying kites, and I'm going to show you why. This is my US flag. I proudly fly it every day, and you're going to watch it change velocities as you see it flutter. And what we want is as consistent wind as we can. A couple of minutes ago this was just hanging totally flat. Right now it's moving, and you can see it starting to die. That would give us problems with our kite, because our kite would not maintain a good flight. When the wind starts to die, the kite starts coming down. When the wind picks up, the kite goes up. So this kind of makes it what looks like it might be a good day, because it's kind of blustery, a Winnie the Pooh blustery day. This is not a good kite flying day because of the inconsistent winds. And this is second or third video of the kite flying, trying to keep track of it without zooming in. Right now I've probably got 80 feet of string out. How high will a kite fly? That's a balance of wind, of air pressure differential across the airfoil, the kite itself, the weight of the kite, and the weight of the line that's holding. And if you can see it in the video, the line is being blown by the wind, and it's also being pulled down by gravity. So the kite is fighting physics issues of lift, weight, drag, thrust, whatever. The kite theoretically has thrust created by the differential of this is kind of fun. I'm just having fun flying a kite. I gotta find my kite and my camera. There we go. Trying to fly the kite and trying to do video is fun. I'm trying to find my kite. my kite. I have, and I'm going to show you, the kite's flying really well right now because the wind's good, fairly steady. You can see that the kite's fairly steady. I'm going to pan down and show you my house and where I'm standing. And my kite is close to the far end of my house, which, this is my house, and where I'm standing. My house is 110 feet long. It's measured. I have the gutters up. So right now I'm estimating that I have probably 130 to 150 feet of line out to that kite, and it's flying really nice. This is a great day for kite flying. When we get good winds in Ramona, which isn't all the time, it's great to fly a kite, and I'm just having fun. The flight of the kite is dependent upon the wind, and I'm reeling it in, and something just occurred to me. And I'm going to show you the ridge that I'm standing on here so that you can see where I'm at. So behind me, I'm going to turn around. Behind me is this ridge and valley, which gives me a really super projectile. And as the kite gets up high, it gets into smooth, consistent air, so it flies pretty smooth. As I'm bringing it down, it's running into turbulent air, and it's jumping all over the place because it's totally dependent upon a compromise between, whoops, I gotta get some line in really quick. It's totally dependent upon a compromise between the string that's holding it and the wind. And as I'm bringing it down to reel it in, the wind is becoming more erratic, more inconsistent, because it's burbling over the ridge line. Whereas when it was out there at 110, 120 feet, it was flying pretty smooth because the air was pretty consistent. So I'm bringing it in because I'm going to end my day of flying a kite. And you can see that it's pretty erratic right now. It's kind of erratic. So what fun. I love flying kites. The winds are a bit erratic, so we're seeing the kite go all over the place. But it is flying. It's doing what it's supposed to do. If I let out more string, and because the kite has no self-propulsion, when the wind changes, the kite has no self-propulsion factors to it. So when the wind changes, the kite goes where it wants, so to speak. It is very easily influenced by the wind, but the issues are, as discussed in the earlier portion, the differential between the front and the back keeps it pointed in the right way. The tail increases its stability, which you can see is not real stable, and you can't feel it, but behind me I can feel it. The wind is gusty, it's irregular, so I'm going to try and zoom in a little bit. And right now the wind's pretty smooth, so this is a kite flying. This is all aerodynamics, and the wind is dying, so the kite's probably going to come down. Oops, it's getting gusty again. I'm going to zoom back out. Too hard to try to fly the kite and do the camera work at the same time. So This kite is flying not because the wind is hitting a piece of paper or a piece of fabric. It's flying because the kite is an airfoil, and the different shapes, the front versus the back for the shape, defines how it's going to lift. The tail adds stability to it, front to rear stability. The way that the string is attached to it keeps it at an angle of attack to develop lift. And if we were to get instrumentation to this kite, there is a very shallow, very little reduction in air pressure behind the kite, and the kite is basically being sucked into that lower air pressure, so it is flying. The kite is actually flying. And you can make a kite fly either by taking it into the wind like it is here, or by running a kite. Take it on a calm day and run down the street, something I'm not up to, but that gives it movement through the air. It has to have movement through the air. And this kite is flying. If I was to take a piece of plywood and throw it up in the air, it would move, it would be blown downwind. That's not flying, that's being hurled, that's being flung, that's being thrown by the wind. So things in tornadoes can do one of two things. They can either fly because they're airfoils, or they can be blown chaotically because they're resistance to airflow. And the kite's flying really well. Just for the fun of it, I'm going to turn off the camera because we've now seen it fly. And I'm going to fly a kite for a while. Thank you, Mary Poppins. Let's go fly a kite. This is a picture of my front yard and why I was not in it. That ridge on the east-northeast side of my house provides a fair amount of blockage to any airflow, and as a result, as the air comes over that ridge, the air in my front yard is very, very turbulent, so you really have to get the kite up at least 70-80 feet right off the bat before you get in anywhere near smooth air, which is why I go to the back of my house on that ridge. I'm already closer to smoother air as we go up. I just love flying a kite. Hey, I'm going to give you, if I can find it on YouTube, I'm sure it's there, I'm going to give you the Mary Poppins song, Let's Go Fly a Kite, and I'll give you the lyrics. Thanks for watching. I love flying kites. I wish that in grammar schools they wouldn't disillusion kids with their flat kites. Thanks for watching.